Erev Tov, everyone. It is Wednesday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora. This is the Maimon Beit Knesset, therefore it must be the Torah study in depth with Rabbi A. And hopefully pretty soon the other Rabbi A will be joining us, Rabbi Ancel, once he returns from overseas and returns back to the Dominican Republic. Good to have you here this evening. Let's see who we have in the chat room so far. We have Donald. Of course, we always have Donald. And we have Marshall. And right now, that's all we have in the chat room. We have a few others who are watching in the background, and probably because they can't get into the, or don't have the ability to get into the chat room, which is usually the case when somebody is watching on a tablet or a cell phone. But we're glad you're all here anyway. So we are closing in on the end of Parsha Tetzaveh and closing in on the end of the Sefer Shemot, which will complete for us two Seferot for the Torah. Those of you who have been with us to stick with us through this whole long process, I think it's been valuable. We're going to pick up again this evening in the book of Shemot, the book of Exodus, and the chapter 30. And we have two verses left, verse 9 and verse 10, and then we will go into the little Midrash says, and we've been talking about the Mishkan and the construction of the Mishkan and all of that stuff, and it got me wondering today about, again, I'm going to apologize. This cataract is just absolutely driving me crazy. So I apologize for all the blinking. Anyway, it got me curious about the acacia wood, the shittim, as it's referred to in the Torah. And I got to thinking, okay, well, everything in here is made from the acacia wood, and it's either covered with gold or it's covered with copper, and exposed to the elements, and especially the mezbeach would have fire in it and stuff like that. And I'm kind of wondering about this wood. What are the properties of this wood? And I was actually quite astounded when I looked into it that the acacia wood is a very dense, hard wood, very heavy. So I started looking it up, and Marilyn has joined us. Good to see you, Marilyn. So what I found out about acacia wood is that the wood itself, if we were to take a block of it that was a yard long, a yard wide, and a yard high, the weight of that block of wood would be 1,676 pounds. That's pretty heavy. That's kind of, I kind of figured it would have to be, this wood would actually have to be, because of, what was being done with it, have to be stronger than oak, maybe, between oak and ash or something like that. Come to find out, it's actually even more so. If we looked at a square yard of oak, it would be 1,543 pounds for a square yard. And shittim or acacia wood actually is above that, but just barely below teak. Teak wood has a weight of 1,764 pounds for a square yard. So, and again, I don't know. Richard has joined us. Good to have you, Richard. So I started looking at the properties of this, and I said, okay, so what would its stiffness be? I mean, this thing is exposed, is constantly being put up and taken down, and if it was balsa, which is a very light wood, or even pine or something like that, one of the softer woods, it would have a tendency to twist and warp and stuff like that, and come to find out that acacia wood was very popular because it wasn't, because of its denseness, it stood up very well against the elements. In fact, it was used a lot in sidings of homes and stuff like that, and things that were going to be exposed to the weather. So I said, okay, well, we know that some of the pillars in the Mishkan were fairly tall. I think we had figured it out, something to about 15 feet tall and stuff like that. So which you would think that okay, naturally this could have a tendency to warp and stuff like that. So I checked on its stiffness, which would be 1,476 kilopounds per square inch. So that means to be able to twist this piece of wood, it takes 147,600 pounds of pressure to actually twist the wood. That is a lot. Okay. So strength-wise, the strength of this wood, if we were to put it into a fixture and we were to drive into it with an instrument, kind of like what I used to do for a living, which was a great job. I mean, where else in the world could you get paid that kind of money to break things? Okay, but I did it for a long time. Anyway, the strength of the wood, if we were to put it into something and actually put force on it until it broke, the breaking force on that would be over 2,300 pounds of force per square inch. I mean, this is a pretty sturdy wood. So again, looking at some of the elements of the Mishkan, like the walls of the Mishkan, the pillars and stuff like that, that Moshe Rabbeinu himself put up and took down, and put up and took down, and put up and took down. I mean, which is actually more than a square meter or a square yard of this material. And again, just at the square yard mark, it's still 1,676 pounds. That's a tremendous amount of weight. So I thought you might find that interesting. I know I did. I mean, I spent a lot of years in material testing and stuff like that. I found it absolutely fascinating. Hence why the Mishkan was able to be sustained for 40 years without any issues, and why again the altar, the burnt offering altar, was also why I mean, with all this fire on it all the time, why it didn't warp or crack or anything like that. It's just interesting. Okay. Actually, no. It would not be a feast for the termites. It is actually too hard for termites, much like teak. Teak is very insect resistant because of its density. Anyway, now that we've got that little bit of trivia for whoever may find it interesting other than me. But hey, it's my show, so I get to talk about what I want to. So there you go. I mean, even we know what the the measurements of all these things are. Maybe one of these days I will sit down and calculate the total weight of the Mishkan. We'll see. It had to be quite heavy. Okay. Okay, so let us begin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivah l'sok b'divrei Torah. Okay, we left off verse, again, just for those that are just coming in, the book of Exodus, the Sefer Shemot, chapter 30, starting at, well, actually kind of concluding, at verse 9. Okay, so, verse 9, you shall not bring up on it foreign incense, or olah offerings or meal offerings, nor may you pour any poured offering upon it. Rashi goes on to say about this, you shall not bring up on it, on this mizbeach, foreign incense, that is, any incense brought as a donation. They are all foreign to it except for the incense which is offered on it every day, or an olah offering or a meal offering. This means nor an olah offering nor a meal offering. Excuse me. Okay, that seemed pretty... an olah offering, I'm glad he actually goes on here. An olah offering refers to anything offered, any offering of animal or fowl. And a meal offering refers to the offering of bread. Excuse me. Well, all of a sudden I'm coughing is beyond me. Okay. So, so again, we're talking about the golden mizbeach, the incense, where the incense was offered. So this isn't the offering altar, the copper altar. That's why it's saying that you can't use the foreign incense on it, or you can't use it for an olah offering or for a meal offering, because those are actually brought up on the copper altar, and the golden mizbeach is strictly for the incense. Okay, so further commentary on this one, with regards to on this mizbeach. Well, that's 4. Okay. But incense brought as a donation could be offered on the copper mizbeach. The princes of the tribes offered such incense when they dedicated the mizbeach, which we will read more about in Numbers. Referring to, for they are all foreign except for the incense which is offered on it every day. Further commentary on that says Rashi interprets foreign incense differently from Targum Onkelos, which is kind of unusual because usually Rashi goes along with Targum Onkelos most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. Targum Onkelos, who interprets it as incense made of ingredients other than those set forth in verse 34 below. And Targum Yonasan, who interprets it as the incense of a non-Jew. Okay. Let's see. With regarding to nor a meal offering, further commentary says that most common meaning of the vav prefix is and. There are also many instances where in which it means or. Rashi points out that here it means nor. It could have been understood as and, in which case the verse would forbid sacrificing only the combination of foreign incense and olah offering and meal offering. Rashi explains that the vav prefix similarly in his comments to numbers, where they actually go into the compounding of the incense. Okay. Okay, the meal offering refers to the offering of bread. Further commentary on this one says that it is not only olah offerings and meal offerings that were forbidden to be brought up on this mizbeach. It was used only for the incense and for the blood of the Yom Kippur sacrifice mentioned in the next verse. Rashi uses olah offering to represent all animal offerings and meal offerings, to represent the offerings of bread with regard to this prohibition. Okay, final verse for this parasha. Aharon will cleanse its horns once a year from the blood of the sin offering of the atonements. Once a year shall he cleanse it for your generations. It is holy of holies to Hashem. Rashi goes on to say here, Aharon will cleanse. This refers to the application of blood to the horns of the Mizbeach on Yom Kippur, once a year on Yom Kippur. This refers to that which is said in Parsha Akremot, and he shall go to the Mizbeach, which is before Hashem, and he will atone on it. The sin offering of the atonements. These are the bull and the goat of Yom Kippur, which atone for impurity of the Beit HaMikdash and its sacred objects. Holy of Holies. The Mizbeach is consecrated for these things alone, not for any other service. Okay. Further commentary on this one, which goes on to on which to atone for the impurity of the Beit HaMikdash's sacred objects. They atone for the Kohen who is aware that he is in a state of impurity and enters the grounds of the Beit HaMikdash, or eats a portion of korban unwittingly, and for the Kohen who is unaware that he is in a state of impurity and knowingly enters who is unaware that he is in a state of impurity and knowingly enters the grounds of the Beit HaMikdash or eats a portion of the korban. Okay. So as we've found out before when we were talking about all the sacrifices and everything, that one who becomes contaminated through something they can be contaminated with, but does not become aware of it until later. Okay, so same thing with the Kohanim, that they unknowingly entered, being in an impure state, and it only became known to them later on. So this is the atonement for that. With regards to the Mizbeach, is considered for the Mizbeach is consecrated for and not for any other service. Further commentary says here the Torah tells us specifically in what respect the copper Mizbeach is holy, but it does not tell us how the Mizbeach is holy of holiness. Rashi explains that the Mizbeach is holy of holies because because no service other than those mentioned in this section may be performed on it. And of course, we come to the end of the parsha. The next parsha is Kitesah, but before we go into Kitesah, let us catch up on the little Midrash says. I just love this book. It is so concise and easy. Um, yeah. So again, little midrash says, give them a plug. I recommend it for anybody's family. This is a great book. It would be a great one to read at the Shabbat table each week because it has all the parashas in here. Okay, so I have to remember that. Yeah, this this opens this way. Yeah, it doesn't open that way. Okay, so the importance of the Bigdei Kehuna and the Kohanim's garments, which we did talk quite a bit about. Okay, just checking to see if anybody else has come in. No. Okay, still got a few people watching in the background. Okay, so Hashem commanded that sets of 4 garments be sewn for the Kohanim, and 8 for the Kohen Gadol. What a regal look they gave him. The holy garments, when worn by the Kohanim, caused the Jews to respect them. The Kohanim's garments also atone for Bnei Yisrael's sins, similar to the Korbanot offerings. For example, the Me'il coat atones for Lashon Hara, spoken with our lips. The Ketzonet, if I can get my mouth to work right, shirt made amends for murder. And the Ephod apron for the sin of idol worship. How good it was for the Jews to have the Kohanim to do the service of Hashem. May we soon see them to do the Avodah again. And remember again that the Kohanim were not, the priesthood passes through several transitions, shall we say, transmigrations. Melchizedek actually was to be the Kohen Gadol. Not actually the Kohen Gadol, but the high priest. Now, this was back during Avraham Avinu's time, and he made the mistake of blessing Avraham Avinu before he blessed God. Therefore, the priesthood was taken away from him. Later on, the priesthood was supposed to be the firstborn of every family of Bnei Yisrael was to be a Kohen, or a priest. Not a Kohen, because the Kohen comes from the tribe of the Kohanim. So anyway, so the firstborn, but because of this and the golden calf and other things, the priesthood was taken away from the firstborn and was given to Aharon and the Kohanim and the Levim. So that's how we actually got to the Kohanim. And in fact, we actually see it mentioned in Torah later on that this was, that the firstborn were supposed to be the priests, and how that was, because it's actually mentioned in the Torah. So anyway, we will get to that. Okay. What's the name of the book? The name of the book is The Little Midrash Says. It's primarily intended for children, to begin the study of the Mishnah. But I love it because it's so wonderfully written. and expanded on, and it is very straightforward. The Midrash can get a bit complicated and stuff. This is very straightforward, and until you get to the point where you're ready to actually delve into the Midrash, uh, dive into it wholeheartedly. This actually works very good as an introduction. And for young people, it kind of engenders an interest in them to go on later on when they're able to study the Midrash. Okay, so we go on. Moshe tells the Jews to donate oil for the menorah. Moshe told the people, if anyone among you has olive oil that is fit for lighting the menorah in the Mishkan, give it to me. Again, we've talked about the process of making that oil because it was very special. He explained, only the first few drops of oil that are pressed out of the olive may be used for menorah. Those first few drops are the purest, so they give the brightest light. The rest of the olive oil may be used for menachot, or the flour offering that are brought to the Mizbeach, but not for the menorah. Yes, actually a wonderful gift for the holidays. It is a set of 5. There is one for each of the sephers of the Torah, and yeah. So there you go. I can't recommend this thing highly enough. I think it's just great. I think it's for anyone, especially if even adults, if they haven't had the opportunity to actually study Mishnah. Maybe they became observant later on in life, or maybe they were brought up more secular or whatever, and they start to get curious about that. This is a great way for them to actually start the study. And again, the idea is that you get enough information so you get a broad brush of the Mishnah, of the Mishnah, that you become curious to learn more. At least that's what I think. Okay, so we're on still on to the oil. The only Nazim, the leaders of the tribes, had kosher oil that Moshe accepted. Do you want to know how brightly menorah burned? Our sages tell us that the light of the menorah in the Beit HaMikdash miraculously radiated such a brilliant glow that the entire city of Jerusalem was lit up. There was no dark street or alley at night in Jerusalem while the menorah in the Beit HaMikdash burned. Okay, as opposed to Mishkan, the Beit HaMikdash being the actual temple that Solomon built. Okay, who lit the menorah? The Kohen usually lit the menorah, and only the Kohen could clean and prepare the menorah. Every morning, a Kohen entered the Kodesh section of the holy Kodesh section of the Mishkan, and later of the Beit Hamikdash, and walked up the steps in front of the menorah. He emptied the ashes from all the lamps, removed the burned wicks, and inserted fresh wicks. Then he poured olive oil into each lamp from a jar that contained half a log, about half a pint, of kosher olive oil. He did this every morning, but he did not light the menorah until afternoon. The mitzvah of lighting the menorah was so great that Hashem proclaimed, "The light of the menorah is more precious to me than the light of the sun and the moon." The Midrash explains, the miraculous light that always burned. Every morning, the Kohen who entered to clean the menorah witnessed a miracle. Every day. All 7 lights of the menorah should have been extinguished because the half of log of oil that the Kohen had lit the previous afternoon could only last until the next morning. But amazingly, he always found the middle light of the 7 still burning. How could that be? It was clearly a miracle. It was a sign from Hashem to show the Jews that his Shekhinah rested in the Mishkan. Okay. The Kohen would not touch the burning middle light, but he cleaned the other 6 lamps and put in new wicks. The Kohen who entered in the afternoon found the middle light still burning brightly, and he used the middle light to kindle the six lights. Only afterwards did he blow out the middle light, clear the ashes from the middle lamp, and light the middle lamp again. So kind of the Ner Tamid, the eternal light. It continually burned, even though, fresh oil, new wicks, but it was lit from the flame that was from the previous day, and so on and so forth. The middle light, also called the Ner Maravi, burned like this every day in the Mishkan and also the Beit HaMikdash, as long as the Jews were Zalikim. Okay. Hashem tells Moshe about the special clothes of the Kohanim. Hashem said to Moshe, "Tell your brother Aharon, Hashem has chosen you to be the Kohen Gadol, the high priest in charge of the Avodah, Hashem's service in the Mishkan. Your sons and their descendants will be Kohanim who perform my Avodah. This is a great privilege for all of you." Hashem also informs Moshe, the Kohen Gadol and the Kohanim have to wear special, beautiful clothes during the Avodah. The Kohen Gadol's clothing will be extremely beautiful, more distinguished than the robes of any king. When the Jews see the Kohanim in their wonderful clothing, their clothes, they will realize that the Kohanim are special people, and they will behave respectfully towards them. These clothes will also remind the Kohanim themselves that they are special. This will help them serve Hashem better. The clothes of the Kohanim were holy, and therefore many dinim, laws, apply to them. Some are, only a Kohen may wear the Bigdei Kehuna, the Kohen's garments. A Levi or ordinary Jew may never put them on. The Kohen may wear them only while he is in the Mishkan or the Beit HaMikdash. If he leaves, he must take them off. As we see every time that the Kohen has to take the ashes to the outside of the camp, or he has to take the skin and the dung and so on and so forth out to burn that in a holy place, that he takes off his garments, and then he goes and he does that, and then he washes himself and comes back and gets dressed again. The Kohen may not go to sleep in the Bigdei Kehuna, because that would be disrespectful. The Kohen must wear exactly those clothes that the Torah commands. If he is missing one of the garments while he does an avodah, an act of service, the avodah is invalid. What were the Bigdei Kehuna, the Kohen's clothing? The Kohen Gadol had 8 garments, and the Kohen Hediot had, the ordinary Kohen had 4 garments. These were the 4 garments of the ordinary Kohen. Kitlonot, the long shirt, Miknasim, Miknasayim, pants, Migbaat, a hat, and the Avnet, a belt. And these were the clothes of the Kohen Gadol, the 8 garments. The Kedonot, the long shirt, Miknasayim, pants, Mitznefet, the hat that was different than the ordinary Kohen's hat. The Avnet, a belt. The Chosin, the breastplate. The ephod, the apron. The Me'il, the coat. The Zitzit, the headband. Okay, the Middle Midrash goes on to say, before we explain more about these clothes, let's ask ourselves, which part of every Kohen and Kohen's Gadol's body remained bare because the Torah did not prescribe any garment to cover it? Perhaps you noticed, neither the Kohen Gadol nor the ordinary Kohen wore shoes or slippers or socks. The Torah commands the Kohen to do the avodah barefoot, since the earth floor of the Mishkan and the stones of the Beit HaMikdash floor were holy, and Hashem wanted the feet of the Kohanim to touch the floor, to have direct contact. The Kohanim, of course, obeyed Hashem's command, even though it was hard for them. The stone floor of the Beit HaMikdash was uncomfortable, cold during the winter. Besides, the Kohanim were always dressed lightly. Only the ketonot, the long shirt, covered their bodies. They were not allowed to put on extra clothing during their avodah. The Kohanim often became sick. And in time of the Beit HaMikdash, a special doctor was appointed to take care of the Kohanim and to give them medicines to cure them. But, of course, no Kohen would give up the privilege of serving Hashem in the Beit HaMikdash, even if he risked catching a cold by walking barefoot on the cold stone floor. I can also imagine that as the Kohanim got older, that this would, you know, when you get older, I mean, walking on a cold floor can be very uncomfortable because it radiates up into all your joints, so, okay. So there is a little commentary on this. It says that just as the Kohanim were happy to do Hashem's work, even though they were uncomfortable, a Jew overlooks physical discomfort in order to fulfill a mitzvah. Of course, it is more comfortable to stay in bed on a cold winter morning than to go to yeshiva, but we must pull ourselves out, or else we will not become Talmidei Chachamim. It may also be tiresome to listen to parents when they have an errand for you, and you are tired, but you do it to fulfill the mitzvah of kibud of va'amim, and don't do it with a grumpy face either. With a smile, you win more than you lose. All you need is to want to do the mitzvah. Then you can overcome all difficulties. Okay, so nice little lesson in there for the kids. Now, let us have I can't wait till my granddaughter gets old enough to hear this. I mean, I just can't wait for her to get old enough where I can sit down with her and we can go through this. And she's getting close. I mean, she's going to be It's going to be 2 pretty soon. Okay, we might wait till she's 3. We'll see. Now, let us have a closer look at the Kohanim's clothing, beginning with those of the Kohen Hidyot, the ordinary Kohen. The garment of the ordinary Kohen. Kitunet, a long shirt. Kitonet, were woven of white linen and reached down to the Kohen's sole. Of net, the belt, the Kohen wore a belt on top of the long shirt. The belt was very long, 32 amot, about 64 feet, which is considerably longer than the gartel that we typically wear today, and was wound many times around the Kohen's waist. The belt was made of colored fabric. Saim, the pants were short and woven from white linen. Migbaat, a turban. Did I skip a page here? I think I'm talking about the Kohen Gadol here. Yeah, we did. We kind of jumped right from the ordinary Kohen to the Kohen Gadol. Okay, so the turban. A long white band of linen was wound around the Kohen's head, many times to form a pointed hat. The garments of the Kohen Gadol. And there was a picture in here, and I guess that's why I got a little confused here. The Kohen Gadol, just like the ordinary Kohen, wore a kutanet, long shirt, and a belt, and the miknasayim, the pants. Also with that, the mitznefet, a turban. The Kohen Gadol turban was also made from a white strip of cloth that was wound around his head, but it was flattened on top rather than pointed. The Kohen Gadol wore 4 more garments than the ordinary Kohen. The ephod, the apron. The ephod was a beautifully woven, colorful garment that looked like an apron. Instead of being worn in front and tied in the back, the Kohen Gadol wore it on his back, and it was tied in the front. Now, we've heard so many times Rashi talking about the ephod, the apron, being like that women wear when they're riding a horse. You know, that's constantly talking about that. And back in Rashi's days and before that, you know, all through the Middle Ages and stuff like that, when women went out and rode a horse, they wore an apron so that their clothes didn't get dirty. And it was probably a lot more comfortable for them, too. It was held up in back by 2 straps that reached the Kohen Gadol's shoulders. In each of the 2 shoulder straps was inserted a precious gemstone on which the names of the 6 Shvatim or tribes were engraved, and the names of the other 6 Shvatim appeared on the other precious gemstone in front, and the 2 shoulder straps were connected to 2 golden chains, which were hung on the Choshen Mishpat, the breastplate. So, there is a picture in here of the Kohen Gadol. Okay. Where are we at? We're about at our halfway point. I'll tell you what, before we go into the Choshen Mishpat, the breastplate, let's go ahead and let's take our break at this point. And then when we return, we'll get into the rest of the clothing of the Kohen Gadol and whatever else my little midrash has to say on the subject. and we will return in 6. Stay tuned.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. The show starts in 3 minutes. The show starts in 2 minutes. show starts in 1 minute. And now, on with the show.
And we are back. Got to see everybody stuck around. See if anybody's come in while we were off. No, still have Donald and Marshall and Marilyn and Richard all still here. All still anxiously awaiting to hear more. Okay, so the Choshen Mishpat, the breastplate. The Choshen Mishpat was made of beautifully woven material. It was square and folded over in the middle so that it formed a pocket. Inside that pocket, Moshe put the Urim Vetumim, a piece of parchment with Hashem's holy name of 72 letters written on it. So, if you ever have the opportunity to watch the movie Pi, P-I, the mathematical symbol for pi, 3.1416, so on and so forth, this 72-letter name of God actually is one of the main parts of the movie. It's a wonderful movie. Kind of dark, but very, very interesting. So just a little plug in there for the movie. Yeah, I might actually have to get that out and watch it again. It's one of my favorites. Okay, so anyway, getting back to my little midrash says, since the Urim Vetumim were very holy, the Choshen Mishpat was the most important of all the Bigdei Kehuna, just as the Aron was the most important of the objects of the Mishkan and the Beit HaMikdash. Hashem commanded that 12 precious stones be put into settings on the woven material. Now, if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, when Rabbi Ancel was still with us, which we hope he will be back with us very soon. We went through all the stones on the Choshen Mishpat and what they were and what we think they are today. And then Rabbi Ancel actually went in and explained about each one of the stones. And you can see the stones. We actually showed them on the air. So if you want, you can go back and watch that if you haven't seen it before. But watch that and see these beautiful stones. And in some cases, we're not quite sure what it was, so we give you some of the options were on it, and what tribe they belonged to, and what each stone was, why they used each one of those stones. So anyway, the 12 precious stones to be put in settings on the woven material of the Choshen Mishpat. On each stone was written the name of a shevet, a tribe. When the Kohen Gadol wore the Choshen Mishpat, he could never forget the 12 shevatim, and he kept them in mind while he did the avodah. and he davened and he asked Hashem to help them and bless them. And Hashem, too, always saw the plate with the names of the 12 Shavatim. He would remember the great Tzaddikim, all 12 sons of Yaakov, were in their Zechut merit. He helped the Jews. The Midrash explains how the gems for the ephod and the choshen were cut. The two precious gemstones on the shoulder straps of the ephod and the 12 precious gems of the choshen had to be cut down to the right size. However, Hashem forbade using a knife or any other instrument for cutting these stones. Just like the stones of when Yaakov would build or Avraham would build a stone altar. Hashem commanded them that they not raise iron on the stone. They weren't to be cut. Okay, so same thing with these precious stones. So how could they be cut? Moshe knew that Hashem had created in the 6 days of creation an insect as small as a grain of barley that could split any material, even the hardest rocks, by just passing over them. This amazing insect was called shamir. Moshe commanded that the shamir be brought to him. The shamir had passed over the precious gemstones of the ephod and the choshen, and they split exactly on the line marked by the craftsman. So there you go. Okay. Meal, the coat. The coat was woven from bull wool. Around its bottom hemline were attached golden bells. Between every two golden bells were ornaments made of wool that looked like pomegranates. When the Kohen Gadol walked, the bells tinkled. Our sages explained, why were there bells on the mill? Hashem had many reasons for commanding that bells be attached to the hem of the mill. Here are three of them. The Kohen Gadol was a very holy man. Before he entered the Kodesh section of the Mishkan, the Kodesh was filled with holy angels who were serving Hashem. When the Kohen Gadol was about to enter, the bells tinkled. This was a sign for all the angels to fly away. Hashem did not want the angels to stay there because some of the angels were angels of din, criticism. These angels might speak up against the Kohen Gadol and accuse him of some slight sin he had done. Since he was such a great man, the angels would point out before Hashem the smallest wrong he had done. Therefore, Hashem caused the bells to ring when the Kohen Gadol arrived so that the angels would leave. When the Kohen Gadol had ended his avodah and was leaving, the bells sounded again. This was the signal for the angels to return. However, the ordinary Kohanim were able to enter the Kodesh section without bells attached to their garments, since they were not as special as the Kohen Gadol. The angels of criticism would not judge them as strictly as the Kohen Gadol. The second reason, the bells were a reminder for the Kohen Gadol himself. When he heard them tinkle, he realized how important his avodah was, and he did his best to carry out each part of the avodah carefully and with the right thoughts. Third, the bells also helped Bnei Israel. When they heard the tinkling, they knew that the Kohen Gadol was doing the avodah, and they assisted him by davening at that time. And 4, as we will explain on page 209, which is the next page, Hashem forgave Bnei Yisrael for speaking Lashon Hara because the Kohen Gadol wore the me'il with the bells on it. The tzitzit, the headband. In the olden times, every Jew wore his tzitzit all day long. Besides wearing tefillin, the Kohen Gadol also had the tzitzit on his forehead. Now, this is different than the tzitzit that we're talking about on the quarters of our talit. The tzitzit was a golden headplate on which were engraved the words Kodesh LaHashem, holy to Hashem. And the word Hashem was spelled with the 4 letters, the Yud He Vav He. The tzitzit was the holy crown of the Kohen Gadol. The Midrash explains the amazing tzitzit. Let us say a Jew spoke Lashon Hara about another person, and he did not think he had done anything terribly wrong. And even if a friend reminded him that Lashon Hara is a grave sin, he laughed and answered him with fresh words. He would continue speaking Lashon Hara, not realizing the seriousness of his sin and not doing teshuvah for it. But if the Jew lived in the time of the Beit HaMikdash, the next Yom Tov he traveled to the Beit HaMikdash and saw the Kohen Gadol as the Kohen Gadol was doing the Avodah in the Beit HaMikdash. The Jew, of course, could not help staring at the Kohen Gadol in his beautiful clothes. And as he looked at the tzitzit, something strange happened. It hit him like a thunderbolt that he had done wrong in speaking Lashon Hara. Suddenly, he was deeply ashamed of himself. He decided, I must do teshuvah for my sins, and I will ask the person about whom I spoke evil to forgive me. The tzitz was so holy that it caused any Jew who looked at it to be ashamed of his sins. When the Kohen Gadol wore the tzitz, therefore, it was a zechut, merit for the Jews. Hashem forgave them for the sin of azut panim, being fresh and rude, because the tzitz helped them to become better. Our sages explain how the Bigdei Kahuna, the Kohen's garments, helped the Jews. When the Kohen wore the Bigdei Kahuna, Hashem considered it as the zechut merit for all Bnei Yisrael. The Bigdei Kahuna helped the Jews in 2 ways. First, Hashem forgave certain sins by the Jewish people because the Kohanim wore these garments. For example, the me'il, the Kohen Gadol's coat, helped a Jew to be forgiven for speaking Lashon Hara. Of course, he had to do teshuvah too. However, teshuvah alone is not enough to be completely forgiven for the serious sin of speaking Lashon Hara. The me'il, the bells attached to the bottom hem, when Hashem heard the tinkling sound of the bells, he forgave the Jews for the sinful sound that they had made when they talked Lashon Hara. The rest of the Kohen Gadol's garments atone for other sins of Bnei Yisrael. The Bigdei Kahuna helped Bnei Yisrael win a war. They were similar to uniforms worn by soldiers. Therefore, when the Kohanim wore their holy uniforms in the Mishkan, Hashem remembered the Jewish soldiers in the battlefield and gave them success. So you see, the Kohanim's garments benefited the whole Jewish people. The Kohanim prepared themselves to begin the Avodah. Hashem explained to Moshe that once the Mishkan was set up, which Moshe did by himself, remember we just talked about all the weight, the Kohanim would begin their avodah there, sprinkling the blood of the sacrifices on the walls of the Mizbeach, placing certain parts of the korbanot on the Mizbeach fire, and eating other parts, cleaning and lighting the menorah, and so on. Hashem said, before the Kohanim are ready to begin the avodah in the Mishkan, they have to become holy and prepare themselves for their work. They will become holy by doing these 4 things. First, they must be present to watch every day as you, Moshe, offer 3 types of korbanot and on the Mizbeach, kind of like, what do you call it? On-the-job training, I guess. In that you will teach them how to bring korbanot on the Mizbeach. Number 2, they must immerse themselves in the mikvah. Number 3, you will anoint them with the shemen hamishcha, the holy oil, and that was put on the Kohanim's heads. 4th, they must put on the Bigdei Kahuna every day. By doing these 4 things for 7 days, they will be ready to begin the avodah in the Mishkan. The incense altar, which we just talked about. The big Mizbeach, on which all animal sacrifices were offered, stood in the courtyard of the Mishkan under the open sky, as we read at the end of Parshat Terumah. Now Hashem commanded Moshe to build a second Mizbeach. This Mizbeach shall be made of wood, shittim, or acacia, wood coated with gold, put in the Kodesh section of the Mishkan next to the menorah and the shulchan. 2 times a day, in the morning and in the afternoon, the Kohen will burn ketoret, incense, on the Mizbeach. Because this golden Mizbeach was not intended for offering animal sacrifices, but only for burning incense, it was named Mizbeach HaKetoret, the incense altar. You may ask, you may indeed, you may ask why the Torah talks about this Mizbeach here. At the end of Parsha Tetzaveh, since the Mizbeach HaKetoret was placed next to the Shulchan and the Menorah in the Kodesh section, why didn't the Torah mention it in Parsha Terumah? With the other objects that stood in the Kodesh section. One of the answers is that Hashem put the Mizbeach HaKetoret as the very last object in the Mishkan to show how important it is. He put it out of its expected place in the Torah for us to notice that it is very special. Why is the Mizbeach HaKetoret so holy? The spices that make up the incense that the Kohen burned on the Mizbeach created a delicious aromatic smell. Our sages tell us that the smoke of the Ketoret went straight up to heaven and was pleasing to Hashem. It was a sign of love and friendship between Hashem and Bnei Yisrael. If Hashem was angry at the Jews and planned to bring an evil decree upon them, the smell of the Ketoret would cause him to nullify the evil decree. Since burning the Ketoret strengthens the closeness between Hashem and the Jewish people, you can see that the Mizbeach HaKetoret is a especially important vessel. The Midrash tells us some of the miracles of the Mishkan. There were 5 important vessels in the Mishkan, and Hashem performed miracles with each one of them. The Aron, the ark, the Shulchan, the table, the menorah, the candelabrum, the Mizbeach ha'olam, the altar for the animal sacrifices, the Mizbeach HaKetoret, the altar for the incense. What miracles did Hashem perform for each of these 5 vessels? The Aron, with its rods, really should have taken up all the space in the Kodesh HaKodeshim from wall to wall. But when the Kohen Gadol stepped inside the Kodesh HaKodeshim, there was space for him to walk all around the Aron. The Aron itself miraculously took up no room. Number 2, the Lechem HaPanim was always taken off the shulchan a week after it had been put there. Did you ever taste a piece of bread that was left over for a week? I have. Wasn't it hard and stale? Yeah, sometimes it was moldy. But not the lechem hapanim. A week after being placed on the shulchan, it was so warm and fresh that you would think it had just come out of the oven. The Kohanim ate from this most delicious bread. It was hard to believe that it was a week old. Number 3, the Ner Ma'arivi, the middle lamp of the menorah never stopped burning until the Kohen extinguished it. Even though it contained only enough oil to burn till the morning, still it burned and burned to the following afternoon. Number 4, a fire fell from heaven and rested on the Mizbeach HaOlam. Number 5, even though there was only a thin layer of gold covering the Mizbeach HaKetoret, the wood underneath was never scorched by the fire of the Mizbeach. These are only a few of the well-known miracles of the Mishkan. They showed the Jews that Hashem's presence rested in the Mishkan. So there you have it. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, these are just basically questions that one would ask a child after they've studied this. So we won't delve into this section. Okay, so we are on to the next parsha, which is Kitasa. Let's see, what do we got here? We got about 15 minutes. We can at least get a start on it. So let's go back and see what's bothering Rashi. So again, Parsha Kitasa, which begins at chapter 30, verse 11. So Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, when you will take a census of Bnei Israel according to their counts, every man shall give Hashem an atonement for his soul when counting them, and there will be no plague among them when counting them. Okay, I went from 11 to 12. There was no commentary on 11, so we'll pick up at 12. Rashi goes on to say, when you take a census, the word tisa means taking, as it's rendered by Targum Onkelos. This verse saying, when you will wish to take the total of their number, to know how many they are. Do not count them by heads, because every time we see the people counted, something bad happens afterwards. Okay, we do not count them by heads. Rather, let each one give a half shekel, and you will count the shekelim, and you will thereby know the number. Again, how do we know that we have a minyan? Okay? Never count a minion. Never count the people of a minion. We will count Sidorim. We'll count shoes and divide by 2, which presents another problem if somebody doesn't have a leg. I threw that one in there for Reuben. Or there is a mnemonic, a saying that if you every word to a person, and if you get through the entire saying, you know you have a minion. Okay, so you will know their number. Okay, Rashi goes on to say, and there will be no plague among them. Otherwise, there would be a plague. For the evil eye can affect that which has been counted, and pestilence can come upon them, as we have found in the days of David. Okay, further commentary on this one says, with regard to the word tisa, meaning taking, the word tisa from the root nun shin aleph, to carry or to raise, has many specialized meanings, all related to, in some way, to its basic meaning. You will raise. Here, Onkelos renders array tikabel, when you will take. Also Rashi and Onkelos to chapter 23, verse 1 above. Onkelos to Leviticus and Numbers and elsewhere. Onkelos renders the word according to its context. Some examples are temeh, you will swear, and shevkat, you will forgive. Below, similarly, Genesis in Tisa. Why am I straining to look at that? There we go. Tisa, you will favor. Tisover, you will bear. Tizkov, you will raise. And titol, you will carry. Okay, I'm glad we got all that done. Okay, let's see. Go on here. Rashi goes on to here. When you will wish to take the total of their number. The further commentary here says, here Rashi points out that the giving of the half shekalim does not accompany the count, but precedes it. Therefore, he states, when you wish to take, and not when you take. Okay, after the fact. Okay, with regards to, and you will know their number thereby. The Torah states, this is a further commentary, the Torah states that Moshe will count the children of Israel. They should give a half shekel. It is not evident from the Torah itself that they are counted by these coins. Rashi says that this is so. Furthermore, he points out that the verse is not a command to count the people. It is a general statement. Should the Moshe wish to count them, he should count them by half shekalim. Rashi to verse 16 below, and the note 7 on page 427, which you can't see because I got the book. Okay, yeah. As we found, the pestilence to come upon them, as we found in the days of David. Further commentary says on this is from 2 Samuel, chapter 24, verse 1 through 10. King David ordered his general Yoav to take a census of the nation. Immediately thereafter, 70,000 people died in a plague which both David himself and the prophet God blamed on improperly conducted census. Every time we see a counting of the Jews, something bad happens, and that's why we don't count people. It's even my habit when we have the parsha in the Torah where it talks about the counting of the people. I never count the number. I'll give you an approximate, but I won't give you an exact number. I don't want that on my head, you know. Okay, so we'll go on to verse 13. This is what they shall give. Everyone who passes among the count, half of the shekel by the holy shekel. The shekel is 20 gerah, half a shekel as a portion to Hashem. Rashi goes on to say, this is what they shall give. God shows Moshe a sort of coin of fire, whose weight was half a shekel, and told him they should give a coin like this. Who pass among the counted. It is the practice of those who count to have those who are counted pass before them one after another. So too the word Yavor in the praise, each will pass beneath the rod, and so too the word Ta'avorna in the phrase, the flax will pass by the counter. Half of the shekel, of the holy shekel. Rashi goes on to say, of the weight of the shekel that I have set for you, against which a weight of the shekelim of Hekdesh, I guess we'll find that out, such as the shekelim mentioned in the passage which deals with the Archanim. Arachin, and the redemption of from Hekdesh of an inherited field. The shekel is 20 gerah. Now, the verse specifies for you how much the shekel is. Gerah, this means the same as the Aramaic word ma'ah. So too the word agorat in the book of Samuel. In the verse, he will come to bow down to him for an agorah of silver and a loaf of bread. The shekel is 20 gerah. For the whole shekel is composed of 4 zuz. And the zuz was originally 5 ma'ah. But they came and added 1/6 to it, and raised its weight, raised the rate of a zuz to 6 silver ma'ah. And half of this shekel that I have mentioned to you in this verse, you shall give as a portion to Hashem. Excuse me. I apologize. Okay, so further commentary on this. With regards to the fiery coin, it should give a coin like this. Further commentary says that this appears superfluous. Okay. The verse could have said, everyone who passes among the counted shall give. This demonstrates, this indicates that God showed Moshe the coin. Okay. Okay, where it regards, and the flock shall pass by the counter, that comes from Leviticus chapter 27, verse 32. The verse speaks of the counting of animals and setting aside their tithe. Okay, we're going on to 3, which is Okay. The weight of the shekel that I have set for you, against which to weigh the shekelim of Hekdesh. Further commentary on this one says, literally, that which has been consecrated, i.d., property belonging to the Beit HaMikdash, by the holy shekel, does not mean that the shekel is itself holy, nor does it mean that the treasury of the Beit HaMikdash mints its own coins. It means that the shekel here is a unit of value which the Torah uses for Hekdesh elsewhere. Okay. Where it regards the redemption of the inherited field, again from Leviticus chapter 27, pledges of money to Hekdesh expressed by using the term Arech. I don't know why I keep forgetting to pick that up. Erech. Literally value with reference to an individual or group of individuals. The amount of the erech is stipulated in the Torah and is dependent on the age and gender of the one who erech is pledged, which basically clarifies nothing for us right now. Okay. We shall just move on. Okay. And again, with regard to this field again, Arachin, the redemption is again, referring to this inherited field. Again, Leviticus 27. The Torah specifies how much one must pay to redeem an inherited field that has been donated to the temple treasury. Okay, where it regards the 20 gerah, specifies how much the shekel is. Further commentary says, when the Torah says half of the shekel rather than half of a shekel, it implies that the shekel has been defined elsewhere. Rashi notes that this is the definition which accounts for the use of the rather than a at the beginning of the verse. Okay, and then there's a couple of references to elsewhere in the Torah or the Tanakh. With all this, the whole shekel is composed of 4 zuz. Additional commentary says some editions have the words hashalim, shehashakel, in reverse order. The word hashalim, whole, then modifies the word hashakel with the rubric preceding it. The basic meaning, however, is unchanged. That's basically what he's talking about. Not the Torah, talking about Rashi's commentary. As we know, there are several editions of Rashi's commentary where there are some minor differences between what Rashi said in the Al-Kabetz edition as opposed to one of the other editions, and so on. Okay. With regards to, again, the shekel, the 4 zuz, the zuz originally was 5 ma'am. The further commentary says this is the full shekel was 4 zuz times 5 ma'am per zuz, or 20 ma'am in the language of our verse, 20 gerah. Yet the Talmud often speaks of shekels, the shekel, as containing 24 ma'am. Rashi explains that the shekel of the Torah indeed weighed 20 ma'am, but later generations increased the weight of the zuz to 6 ma'am, thus increasing the shekel to 24. Okay, I'm sure they had their reason for that. Okay, and then it goes on again with the zuz and the shekel and the ma, and the weight of the zuz to 6 silver ma. For additional commentary, it says, when the Torah or the Talmud speaks of raising or enlarging a number by particular percentage, the percentage is given in reference to the final amount, not the original. Thus the Torah states, and that which is, he sinned in. Try that again. Thus the Torah states, and that which he sinned or misappropriated from the holy he shall repay, he shall add its fifth part to it. The fine is reckoned in the following manner. The misappropriation is divided into 4 parts. $100 misappropriation is considered as $25 parts. Then one, I don't know why they didn't just say $1 in quarters. It would have been easier, but I'm not an old Frenchman, so there you go. Then one more part is added, making it, in our example, $125. The addition is then 1/5 of the final amount. In modern English terminology, this would be called an increase of 1/4 of the original amount. Similarly, Rashi refers to what we would call 1/5 as 1/6. I think we're actually going to go over just a few minutes here. The difference between the shekel of 24 ma'am and the shekel of 20 is 4 ma'am, which is 1/5 of 20, but 1/6 of 24. Okay, so there you have it. Okay, and that is where we are going to stop for this evening. Just mark my spot so I know where to start next time. Again, thank you all for being here this evening. I hope you found at least some of it interesting. I did. And don't forget that Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern is Shachrit Musaf, is Kabbalat and Mariv L'Shabbat, and then at 10 a.m. on Shabbat is Shachrit and Musaf. Then Monday is Zeta's Story Card, and well, as soon as Rabbi Ancel gets back, Tuesday is at 8 p.m. is the Rabbis Discuss. And then, again, right back here on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern for the Torah study in depth. So, until then, everybody, we'll simply say, Laila Tov.